If we look at sustainable design, what we are looking at is a design that's supposed to be beneficial to not just to you, but to the society.
Yeah.
And most of the time when we are looking at these, the type of solutions that we give various clients or various projects, we are looking at something that does not take away from your project, but effectively puts back more into your project. So,
good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, viewers from wherever you're watching us from. It's your host here, Teampursuit Estates, finding you a home where your heart blossom. And we are at Osoita Lodge, indeed, where guests become family. Speaking of guests, you can see the great, amazing guest we have here. And you can tell from his attire that he's an architect. You don't need any furthermore introduction to or ability to tell who he is. Karibu sana, Hope Roberts.
thank you very much, Jermaine, for this opportunity.
Yeah, maybe if you can just, let our viewers know more about you and what you do, yeah.
Yeah, so I am Hope Roberts. I'm an architect. I practice architecture. I try to focus a lot on sustainability. Currently, I run my practice. We have offices both in Nairobi and Mombasa. The Nairobi enables us to coordinate other activities throughout the country, since Nairobi is more central, and the Mombasa is best since we're able to handle quite a number of issues in the coast region, which is a very nice place, and it's really growing really fast. So we thought it would be wise to have an office down there as well.
And thank you, as you've done that. Viewers, you might be wondering, what are we talking about today, and what are we going to let you know more about? You're talking about the how do you pronounce this word? Architectural,
Architectural.
Architectural, We are always in class each and every day. You learn each and every day. You sharpen each other every day. And you can only find that here at Teampursuit Estates, indeed, where we are finding you homes where your heart blossoms. Architectural Alchemy, crafting affordable, sustainable dreams with none other than architect Hope Roberts. And why affordable and sustainable?
Why affordable and sustainable? I think for a very long time, or in the recent future, we've been hearing about sustainability. And for the previous years, whenever someone mentioned sustainability, what would come to mind is expensive. So if you're to do anything sustainable, people would relate it to it being an extra cost to a building. So if I was to design for you a building and incorporate sustainable solutions, maybe the most common that comes to mind is probably solar lighting, for solar PV cells for lighting. Someone would think that's an extra million that I'm going to put in the project that might not bring back. But when you talk about sustainability, it's actually looking at the future, generations, not just today. You're looking at preserving the resources, but if you actually do it well with a professional, you're able to recoup your expenses and making it affordable. Yeah. So it's a matter of looking at the long game instead of the short game. So once you do sustainable, eventually it usually pays back itself. So you're able to save from the grid power. Let's say if you're using solar for like the first example I gave, you're able to save your costs, and probably in 5 years you're able to recoup, and you still have the investment running.
Yeah. So how did you start this passion? When did you think and just say, man, I'm settling to be an architect?
Yeah, so it's funny because unlike most other professionals who'd say that they always dreamt of being probably a doctor or a lawyer, or probably even an architect. For me, I had never thought of being an architect. I did my KCSE and I got a calling letter to do international relations. But after getting it, I wasn't so happy because I thought I had better grades. And when we were reviewing the courses, I saw that I had actually qualified for either the two best courses that stood out to me was architecture and mechanical engineer. So I was wondering, I think being also an African, being an engineer is a very prestigious thing, and I always wanted to identify as an engineer. But after analyzing and just thinking about it, I felt like I didn't I wouldn't fit in a space where it would be just a little bit too rigid. I felt like architecture would give me a little bit more space to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more flexible. I believe I love to think out of the box. I love listening to new ideas, incorporating that, and I felt like engineering would be a little bit restrictive. So that's how I ended up picking architecture as my course. Even after picking it up, I was pretty unsure about it. So what happens is when we started, we realized after changing my course to architecture, I realized that it was 6 years and not 5 years as I had initially thought. So that was a big shocker. But after going through the course and like everything that after putting in quite the time and work, you start loving it. Yeah, so I just started loving it. I used to watch a lot of architectural videos, design videos, and I ended up just falling in love with the profession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how can sustainable and innovative, designs positively impact the built environment, especially in the context of socio-economic development within, our sub-Saharan region?
Yeah. That's a very good question, Jermaine. How does the sustainable design actually help us in the sub-Saharan region, especially the socioeconomic? I think initially when I started talking about sustainable design, I mentioned the element of it being us able to save the resources, the natural resources that we have, so that the future generations can have it. That might not have an economic benefit, but socially it would be good for the future generations to actually benefit from some of these resources that we have. But mostly, if we look at sustainable design, what we are looking at is a design that's supposed to be beneficial to not just to you, but to the society.
Yeah.
And most of the time when we are looking at these the type of solutions that we give various clients or various projects, we are looking at something that does not take away from your project, but effectively puts back more into your project. So if you're looking at sustainable design, you're looking at things like probably even apart from solar lighting, something you can look at is something like water conservation.
Yeah.
You're trying to make sure that when it rains, the water does not go to waste. When you use water, we recycle the water. So we have elements such as a good biodigester that would recycle the water and help you use it to irrigate your lawns. And at times, if the system is properly done, it can also be used to flush your systems and be reused in your system. That way, it's saving you money.
Yeah.
This money you can use to do various other projects. You can use the money to build other things that you'd want. And in the process, you're actually building the community. Yeah, elements such as these simple projects such as the biodigesters for just probably the conservation of water and saving the environment. You actually have specialists who come to build them, and they're being built by the people in the community. So actually a little bit of extra resources to their pockets.
Yeah.
So, and of course, biodigester would cost slightly higher to mean even the technician gets a little bit more money if you look at it that way.
That way, yeah. Always a win-win.
A win-win, yeah.
Yeah. There's this, before we get into, your amazing new baby called Kakaan Studio. And there's this theory that people have in Kenya, in Africa, not everyone though, that if I involve a professional, it will be more costly. How can you demystify that?
That's a very good question or statement. It's interesting because I think one of the professionals that suffers the most is in the built industry, where we have most clients who don't actually understand the importance of professionals, mostly the architects, the engineers, the quantity surveyors, because they feel like, I know what I want. This is what I want. And I can easily just instruct my fundi to do it. Yeah. The best example I usually give to some of my clients is at times when you're feeling sick and deep down, even if you're after Googling the symptoms, you have malaria.
Yes.
Do you say that I will treat myself through and through? Or if you suspect you have this, you can always Google, you have the symptoms, you know what you're suffering from. Is it a waste to pay a doctor or is it safer? In the long run, every time you pay the projects that we're involved in, every time a client makes payments, they usually get more value for the money. Because now when you're dealing with a client, when you're dealing with a professional, the professional usually knows what to do it, the best way to do it. If you're helping in the whole process of the project, I'll help you source for the best skilled laborers. I'll help you get the best deals when it comes to supply. The QS will make sure that your costs are planned within your budget. If you had a budget of 2 million and you want a castle, the professional will be able to bring you back to reality and tell you, no, the money you have, this is what you can get. Yeah. Unlike unqualified people who would rather, since they actually want the money to get into their pockets, they would lie to you and you'd start a project that you cannot finish. And that's how we end up with a lot of projects that are stuck because of the poor planning, poor implementation of the project. So it's always safer and cheaper to get the professionals involved early enough. They'll advise you, you can make the decisions. And at times, from the advice, you might even just decide that this project is not worth taking. I'd rather invest somewhere else. And that would help most clients. A couple of clients who are actually thinking that the construction or the development would bring them money. But after sitting down with the professional and just paying them just a small percentage of what they would have used, it saves them the whole investment of actually them starting and getting stuck in
between.
Yes.
There is also usually a safety measure. What's the safety measure or the risk mitigated when a client involves you as an architect on the client side?
On the client side, one of the biggest risk mitigation factors is once you involve professionals. By professionals, I believe we are talking about licensed professionals.
Yes.
So when you're dealing with an architect, you have to make sure that this is a licensed architect certified by the board. We are under a board called the BORAQS, BORAQS, Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors. This board is responsible for the conduct and professional discipline of these professionals. So it's a regulated profession. And in case there is any professional misconduct by these professionals, you can always report them to the board and action will be taken. But if you involve unprofessional architects or unqualified professionals in your projects, you don't have any recourse in case you've been mishandled, the information you're given was not right, there is no recourse. And that's why we have quite a number of clients, especially half of who are in the diaspora, who actually send money for their projects to be done. But you see, they end up involving quacks, for lack of a better word, quacks, because they think it would be cheaper to do the project to the quacks instead of involving the professional. But once the quacks have messed them up, there's nowhere you'd go to, because probably you'll find that most of the time they don't have proper documentation of the project, they don't have proper agreements, proper signed agreements. So it's a very messy affair. But once you have professionals who are qualified, you can just go to the website and just check that these people are certified by the board. You can always go to the board and you can easily reclaim whatever you feel might have been lost, or your grievances will be sorted out.
Is there a specific process for doing that? Maybe for guys who'd like to know if anything happens.
The process of
a client being able to, I interacted with a certain architect or a certain QS. How do I start the process of reporting or such like things?
Once you interact with a professional who you've not interacted with before, the best thing would be to ask them if they are licensed and registered by the various boards. So each licensed architect or quantity surveyor would indeed have a practicing license, an up-to-date practicing license because they're renewed yearly, and a license as well. They're supposed to be able to display them or show you on request. Then in case, you can always just go over and beyond and just do due diligence and go into the board's website and just type their name or their registration number and just verify that indeed they're certified. In case you have any malpractice or you feel like you've been aggrieved, you can always reach out to the board. The contacts are on the website and they're very responsive. We have professional bodies like AAK, Architectural Association of Kenya, who even usually also try to help in cases of professional misconduct among the professionals. Yeah.
As you continued, you came up with Kakaan.
Yeah.
Or Kakaan.
Mm-hmm.
Potato.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you, to establish this studio, Kakaan Studio Limited, and how does it contribute to providing innovative and sustainable design in regards to construction solutions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Because Kakaan Studio, it's
Kakaan.
Kakaan Studio.
I'm butchering your name.
No, that's okay. That's understandable.
Apologies, man.
No problem. Kakaan Studios was formed after a stint of working experience at various firms, some in Nairobi and eventually in the coast. Hence, we have an office down there. As part of the architectural training, for you to get licensed and registered, you're supposed to practice under a registered architect for at least 3 years, then sit for the board exams, then get registered. So after the whole process of getting registered and interacting with clients, I realized that I was getting quite a number of clients outside for my employer, and I felt like it would be a good opportunity to just step out there and perform. I felt like I had what it took to actually be the lead architect in most of the projects that were being designed. Because I think like any other place, when you're in someone's house, you have to stick to the rules. Generally, I'm very good at following rules, but I wanted to create my own rules so that I'd actually work within them and have the flexibility and space to interact and do also other things. I don't like a lot of structure, so that enables me just to think and just be free and interact with various activities and things. So that's when we decided that we just need to just start a new company and just start from scratch and offer the best services to these clients who really needed us to be on top of our game. So that's how we ended up birthing Kakaan Design Studios.
And maybe if you want to talk about a few projects you've done with so far.
I feel like that's a trick question. Jermaine is asking that because one of the first projects we actually did with Kakaan was for him, for Teampursuit Estates. And it's, I think now that he's the one who's interviewing me, I'd have to start with his project. I actually call it the Red Riding Hood. Because we introduced a design feature that was maroon or bright red that I felt gave it some life and made it stand out. It was a very interesting project. Some of the most interesting projects that you do are those projects that the way you designed it, the contractor ends up executing it. So we put together a design team and the construction team and just went through and I believe the project ended up being almost as perfectly as it was designed. So usually it's one of the projects that when I put the visualization that we had done for it versus the end product, they actually, most clients can't tell which is which. Yeah, I get it all the time. Whenever I put it, even when I place it in my portfolio, the clients can't tell which one is the visualization and which one is the end product. So usually for architects, that's usually a joy when what you visualized has not been butchered, if I can borrow the word that you use, is not butchered by the contractor or the client. Apart from that, I think usually when you ask a client which one is amongst your best projects, projects to us are like our babies. You cannot you cannot pick out your favorites. But we've done quite a number of interesting projects, both big and small. I think the most recent one that we've been handling is we're doing mini soccer pitches for World Hope Center. Also, a friend is the one who called me in and we did the visualization. And I think just recently I posted it in my social media. And my friends kept on asking me, is this the visualization? They thought it was the visualization, but it was actually the finished product.
That's true.
So when we actually, what we visualized actually was is being achieved as was. So that's one of it. But I think the perfect answer for that an architect would give you, that if you ask him one of his best projects, he'll tell you is the next one. The next project.
Indeed, the next one shall be one of the best, as we have a couple of next ones that we are working on. And viewers, this is not just, for issues of putting in good word for hope, but it's, the reality. You'll see it for yourself when you see some of those projects pop up as we as we continue. And Hope is a very, very good professional. I know we are friends. We've been friends since high school and all that. And he's really good. You know, for me, I joke a lot. But when it comes to business, this guy is really serious. And and I was really impressed, you know, the way when it's business he flips it real fast, and that's the best professional to deal with. You should check up Kakaan Studio and see what they do and interact with professionals, with the best of the best in the market. In terms of, you know, it takes collaboration, you know, within this industry. Could you elaborate on your collaborative approach with other disciplines and how it enhances effectiveness, you know, even to get the exact copy of design and all that, and in regards to your construction solutions?
Thank you. That's also, I think you keep on asking very good questions. Yeah. So one of the very key professionals that I literally work with side by side. I think there's a time my better half once joked that, is that your second wife? Yeah. So one of the key professionals that I keep by my side all the time is a quantity surveyor. This is a less known professional in the Kenyan construction industry, because most of the time the people are not aware of what the role of a quantity surveyor does. The role of a quantity surveyor, if I might just take this opportunity to explain just briefly, is this person is in charge of the costs. Yeah. So most of the time, most clients feel like, I think I already have 5 million or 10 million. What's this guy going to help me with? It's the same question you'd ask a company. Why do you need accountants if you already have, if you already know your incomes and probably your expenses? But they help streamline the building process. The quantity surveyor, always I bring them into the project so that we able to align the client's dreams versus his budget, because that's the most important. You can't have a project without a budget. That's and I think that's mostly what people skip. I think we have a culture of, let me just start. What the answer? Yeah. But I believe most of the time it's not a very good thing, because we end up with 90% of people who've engaged in construction projects saying that that project was really, really hard. It really drained me, because they were not prepared mentally and they did not have enough data that this project indeed would cost me X amount, or 10 shillings or $10. And what I actually had, my capacity is $5. But once we bring in the QS early enough, the quantity survey early enough, we can able to bring the client to the terms of reality. It might not be so sweet. They say the truth is bitter. Yeah. But we'd rather have it early enough, and it saves the client a lot of stress. The other professionals that we interact with most of the time is a structural engineer, because for almost all approvals, if you're to do architectural approvals by the county, by the National Construction Authority, you require the structural drawings. And also the other important professionals that we have, that we work hand in hand, that also form part of my team, is the mechanical engineer and electrical engineer. Not very common. Most people feel like, I'll just use a plumber and electrician. I usually try to convince the clients, just bring them in and you tell me whether you've recouped your money or not. And most of the time, of course, they usually save a lot by having these professionals. Other related professionals probably would have before starting construction. You'd require a surveyor just to ensure that your beacons and your property is actually your property, and you're not encroaching, or someone did not actually encroach into your property. That would be good to have. It would be good to have a lawyer on your side, also just to make sure that all the paperworks are fine. At times, if you're putting up a big development, more than 4 stories, it would be good to do a geotechnical survey. Yeah, so a geotechnical surveyor would also, or a spatial surveyor, would also be very, very good to have in your project. But the key ones would be, for starters, would be an architect, and most of the time your architect will introduce you to the other professionals. An architect and a structural engineer. But for me, I think what I call my double-edged sword is usually the QS.
The QS.
Yeah, and I believe you've had an interaction with the QS.
Yes.
And at times you end up discussing more with the QS than even the architect.
Than the architect.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. And indeed, viewers, stay tuned, for the next episode where we'll be having the QS here, just to get to understand more on the importance of having a quantity surveyor. We assume a lot as, builders or developers and home builders that, man, I can figure it out by myself. I don't need to spend extra money on a QS and all these things. But indeed, it saves you a lot of money, just as Hope has told us here. In issues of affordability and sustainable design, there is that balance. Many Kenyans are wanting to build homes. Many Kenyans are wanting to invest, be it those here or those overseas in the diaspora. How do you ensure as an architect that your designs, the sustainable design solutions remain affordable? And so what are some of the challenges you encounter, through that when you're trying to achieve that balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Usually there's a strive to get the balance between affordable and sustainable. And I think one of the, I don't know whether to say it's a good thing or a bad thing, is there's so much information and everyone is trying to sell their product. Yeah. So even by the time most clients come, they already have information on this and this and this and this. And at times we actually, and that's why I usually use the quantity surveyor just to try and debunk some of these myths. Is it really going to save you money as the salespeople of this particular product are selling it? Because most of the products that they sell, let's say even if it was a biodigester system, is it actually going to save you that amount of money if you invest? If it's a solar lighting system for your home, is it going to power your house? Are you going to recoup your money? For various systems, we have to actually do the valuations early enough. To ensure that we also get sustainable, I think it's also the onus lies upon us, the consultants, to actually do a lot of research, to put ourselves there and learn more about the technologies. So for our design studio, what we've done, we constantly are doing courses to learn more on sustainable design, the new technologies. And it's not just learning what is newest, but also what's available within our market and how it performs within our market. Because with time, we came to realize as professionals that there are some solutions that do not work as well here in Africa as they do in Europe or in the West. So we actually have to really be very careful to debunk some of these myths and try and use some of the available technologies to save costs in the process, so that we are not importing everything, the type of, let's say, glazing, you're talking about windows, the type of glazing that's used. There are some myths that this one would be the best, it would save you. But if you look at some of the traditional ways of building that we had, actually very good and very sustainable. So we've realized that the world, the design industry or the construction industry is taking almost a 360. Initially, we used to be told that African traditional architecture was bad and we should go to the international style of architecture and do things the way the West are doing. But now we are seeing the West actually incorporating a lot of what we used to do, and that meant that as Africans, we actually really understood the environment and how it deals with the heat, because how Africa is, we generally have a lot of heat and a lot of light. So challenge like proper lighting, we don't have challenges of lighting. If anything, we have a challenge of excess heating. So our windows on the side don't have to be as big, depending on where you are, so that you can save on the heating effect on the building. So it's very good to have a professional who actually understands that not all information actually applies to a particular region. And that's why you need a good professional, because all this, they are taught, and we actually do other courses just to improve on those knowledge and try to help you debunk some of these myths that can be sold to you by salesmen who are just promoting their products.
Technology now is also coming to play. Speaking of, the designs and all that, in what ways do you integrate technology into your design, and how does this contribute, to the efficiency and modernity of your spaces that you create?
That's a very interesting question, because I think the technology right now, or rather the newest development in the worldwide right now is AI. AI is it's just an amazing tool, yeah. And I think there has been words here and there that AI will take these people's jobs, and but we kind of forget that that AI, like any other tool before, is used by humans, was created by humans, and is used by humans to enhance and make life better. Yeah, it's not against us. So we try and incorporate AI in our visualization just to try and preempt some of the visual effects and all that. But it doesn't take away from the knowledge and expertise a professional has. So if there's a good writer, you can always get a good script from ChatGPT. But there's that, forgetting that ChatGPT actually sources from other people's writing all over the net. So these were human beings who actually did it. It doesn't take away from what a good writer would do, the ingenuity. So the same would also apply to our profession also. There's all these tools that are there, but they just help enhance. Architecture is very interesting because it goes beyond just the design and the construction. It goes to deal with, once you sit with clients, you realize that probably they're more inclined towards this design because of a certain experience they had in their childhood. These are things that a computer wouldn't be able to get out. So you have certain experience, probably something that they're going through as a family, the position they are in. So after interacting with a client and understanding all this, you use the tool to enhance your design experience and also for the client. But it's not the main tool that is used.
We've seen some of these houses, in China, an entire 14 floors, or how do you call them, skyscrapers, being built in 2 days, being built in a week. How do they do that? What's the technology behind it?
I think for China and the West, the biggest factor, the difference is actually resources. If you have the resources even here in Africa, we can do it. It's resources and proper planning. Because you see, like a building that actually goes very high within a short period, to mean that the professionals actually sat down, they designed everything right before they went to site. And after designing everything, they even take the design details to the factory and they're produced. So each element, the doors, the beams, the slabs, everything is pre-designed, taken to the factory and prefabricated. So all they have to do, it's like what you do with IKEA. If you're to get an IKEA, it's just assembling. So just assemble. So if you're to do it here, you can do it. But do you have the resources to do all that? And will it be as cheap? Because if you look at the cost implication, you might realize it might be too expensive and I might not get my returns. So if you evaluate that, you realize that, okay, that's not the way I'd want to go. And we'll opt that. But if the moment it becomes cheaper, then everyone will be doing it. And I think we've seen that with also like container housing. It's becoming more affordable. And people are actually, nowadays on the internet, you can see people are actually buying container houses. You just set it up. It's already been prefabricated. You're just opening up like a puzzle. And that makes it very interesting.
What are some of the challenges, you face in sustainable designs, and, how do you get to overcome them?
Some of the challenges we face when trying to incorporate sustainable design in most of our projects is that I think there are two. Number one is usually the client's budget, because if the budget cannot incorporate most of the ideas we're having, then we are relegated to using what is there. But I'd relegate that to option to reason number two. I think the biggest reasoning is mindset. Most of the time, I think we believe that sustainable design is expensive. Forgetting that the cost will be recuperated within that. So if done well, if done well, it will be recuperated. So most of the time, when we mention to a client we want to put this system, they'll just see the numbers without actually looking at the long term. So I think the biggest hindrance is just knowledge and information on design, sustainability, and how it can be done. We don't actually have to have very complicated systems for your building to be sustainable. Maybe I can just give an example. I think recently one of my professors was giving an example what they actually recommended to Uganda as a country. They realized that most houses had the not fluorescent, but the older lamps, and they decided that the ones that do not save energy. That what if, and that was causing a lot of strain on their power grid system. So they realized that if almost more than 50% of the people in the country could just turn to LED lighting, which is at the same cost, you'd realize that the pressure on the grid would come down by almost half what it was.
Just
so you can imagine,
50%.
yes, and it's just changing a light bulb. So you can imagine that's just one very simple way to actually do something that's very sustainable. So you have things like probably water faucets that has low pressure, that doesn't use too much water. Because you realize we waste a lot of water showering, and also flushing.
That's true. What are your thoughts on the solar windows for the commercial buildings and all that, in terms of issues of sustainability?
I don't get you.
The solar panel windows, like it's just a window, but it has a solar panel on it. Still translucent, you can see through, but it has a solar panel on it. How will that perform?
They generally perform well. The biggest challenge is, you see, most of the decisions that are made by most clientele, you want proper evidence. How long has this thing been done, and what's the lifespan? I think it's the same challenge we are having with EV, electrical vehicles. There is not enough conclusive evidence of how well they perform. There's just some data, and of course the data that's coming out is mostly promoted by the people who are developing it. So always the information is good. But you have, if you were to look at the other evidence of the other people who've actually tried it, not the people who are producing, you have the reviews are pretty mixed. And when someone is taking on a project and they're expecting to have returns, most of the time they're not willing to risk and gamble with their resources. So I think it will take a little bit more time till most of the investors and developers are convinced that this indeed is sustainable, and because part of sustainability is reducing the number of repairs and maintenance. So you don't want a system that constantly breaks down. Then it's an inconvenience. It might be good to the environment, but it's an inconvenience to the users. So I think that's one of the challenges also EV users have had in the recent past.
One of the hugest challenge, of real estate in Kenya is fraud. In terms of fraud prevention, as we shift towards that, how do architects play a role in ensuring the integrity of real estate transactions and development process?
So I think, thank you. I think initially when we started, I think there was a question that almost related. And the answer would almost be in the same line. If you, even just in architecture, you'll realize that there are quite a number of people who call themselves an architect and they're not duly licensed. And the name an architect is duly protected by the law. You do not, you're not supposed to use the name an architect unless you are a registered architect by the board of. So you find the same is with other professionals in the industry. So we have a challenge where most clients do not just do the basic due diligence to ensure that the first professionals they're interacting with are duly qualified to actually undertake the process. If you have duly qualified professionals from the very onset, you will have a very good paper trail, so that in case of any fraud, you actually have somewhere to go to. But I think most of the challenges we have in Kenya is once, even if you're to buy land, you don't do proper due diligence. You don't have a lawyer to actually just examine. We work a lot on trust. Trust is good, but always back it up with some sense of insecurity and just try and find out, is this person really who they say they are? You might know that, yes, he did this for the other person, but we say not all project, no project is the same. Every new project is different. I might do a very good job for Jermaine, but for you, maybe I was not a professional, but I did a good job for Jermaine. But when yours is the project that actually goes south. And when you come, you'll come and wonder what happened. You did a good job for Jermaine, but you realize this person is not a professional. So probably they just tried their luck and they ran out of luck with your project. But you have to make sure that with the professional, even the guidelines, there's proper documentation. We have contracts that are properly signed that can be used. Yeah, it's always good to have at least to do your due diligence when interacting with professionals throughout, from the architect right to probably the land administrator who will be buying the land from, yes, to the contractors. So even if you're to use a fundi, you will probably just really need to make sure that this person at least have proper expertise, and in case of anything, you can get your money's worth out of it. Yeah.
The future now, Kakaan is very key and top at sustainability and sustainable designs. As you look ahead, what trends of developments do you foresee in the future in regards to sustainable design, within the real estate sector?
Yeah. So I think in the near future, I think the world is moving towards very sustainable and green design, green oriented designs. I think it's up to the younger people getting into the industry, not just professionals, but the future developers. If you're going to own your property, it's up to each and everyone to actually insist that they want their designs done in a way that it will be beneficial, not just to them, but also the future generations. Because most of the time we forget that sustainability is not just about right now, it's not just about the profit, but it's for your children and your children's children. So it's not just an anthem sung by international communities. It's something that's actually good for you. It makes sure that even for your health, things like lighting ensure that you have proper lighting. You won't have lighting problems. You won't have respiratory problems if your rooms are properly ventilated. So sustainability is to make sure that you get the best out of life, and also the future generations get the best out of life.
Yeah. Speaking of that, as we wrap it up, viewers, I'd just like to throw up a question on, sports, since you're also a sports person, and, sustainable. One of the challenges we see where sports events are hosted, stadiums are built, then after the event goes, the stadiums cannot be used. How can we build sustainable, stadiums and sports complexes within Africa now that sports is growing within Africa?
That's a very interesting question. I believe various professionals would have various insights on how to handle that. But I believe the world has started adjusting to that. And internationally, I think if you look at Europe nowadays, if they were to have a big major event, they try and not build extremely new stadiums. They try to reuse. I think part of sustainability is reuse. There's recycling, reuse. So reuse is very big. So they try to reuse what is currently existing in the cities. But if you're to come down to Africa, we realize that most of the facilities we do not have the capacity. So we'll probably need newer facilities. There was an interaction I had with an architect who actually came up with a brilliant idea. And I think also the government has this information. The best way to actually develop these facilities were to make it under an institution, an already existing institution. So if you're to develop instead of developing a totally new facility that needs money to be run and all that, why not develop it for an institution, let's say like a university, that constantly uses the facility, that will need to. So all you have to do is just supplement for the maintenance. I believe the army has done that with Ulinzi Sports Complex, because they have teams that actually use it. It's constantly used. But if you're to design a totally new facility just for an event, then that's wasteful, because in the long run you'll find that probably there's no team that actually takes ownership. They probably do not have enough capacity. But if you're to develop something probably for a particular institution, it might not be that big, but the institution can actually run it as part of their own. They can let it out whenever someone wants to use the facility at a cost to just help maintain because the institutions already have workers, they have people who are using it. And I believe that would be a more sustainable way of developing sports institutions and facilities.
And I think that is very true, because as you spoke, I know I got triggered on, the college facilities in the US and some of these developed countries. One of their best studies are within colleges, because they are in use constantly with the colleges and, different other guys who also get to outsource the facility, which is really, really indeed brilliant and something that we should look into. Onto the quick fire segment. In one sentence, how do you believe innovative design contributes to the efficiency of real estate projects?
Eventually, in one sentence,
Yes.
it will reduce your costs and it will add value to your project. At the long run, if you look at it, if you're to sell that property, you can always list the sustainability aspects and you can fetch a higher market rate as compared to one that has not been designed to sustainable standards.
Yeah. Rapidly evolving technologies or timeless collaboration, which has a greater impact on the success of sustainable real estate projects?
I think collaborations. Collaborations are key because with collaborations are like relationships. You build them and they build you. Technologies will always change and keep on changing. That's change. It's constantly passing. But relationships are there for the long hauls. Yeah.
From an architect's standpoint, what is the quickest way to integrate fraud prevention measures into the design and construction phases of a real estate project?
Due diligence.
Due diligence.
Yes, due diligence.
Indeed, was a great honor having you, Hope. And as you've breathed hope into the real estate industry in Kenya and beyond, because this is content that shall be viewed by many, we are wishing you the best. But before we wrap it up, how can we get into contact with you?
So we have a website, kakaanstudio.com. We have an IG page, Kakaan Studio, Facebook page, Kakaan Studio, or you can also reach me on my personal IG handle. I post a couple of my projects, Hope Roberts Design.
Yeah. Viewers, indeed, will have all that on the description and have the links to each and every of the mentioned social media handles and also the website. Check them out, and indeed you won't be disappointed with Kakaan Studio or Kakaan Studio. And was a great honor having you, viewers. Until next time, salute.